We all know that moms are important. Where would we be without our moms? They're important for everyone in the world. It doesn't matter who you are, but they're especially important for certain inventors. John Atkinson, he is the creator of a comic called Wrong Hands. It's in the description below. If you would like, please go check out his work. It's excellent. And thanks to John, he's letting us use his comics to make some videos, to get into some interesting topics, and to have some really interesting comprehensible input. Now, because we are going to be doing some reading together, I recommend that this is for people that have quite a few hours of comprehensible input under their belt already. We'll have a video on why I think that, but let's go through it together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English on Autopilot. And as I said, today we have a very, very interesting comic made by John Atkinson here at Wrong Hands, right? His comic strip, his comics that he makes is under the name Wrong Hands. Let's look at the title here. Mothers of Invention. Now, already we can tell that this is a comic, that this is funny, because normally the phrase would be the fathers of invention, because in history, throughout history, due to education, due to opportunities, and just the fact that we listen to men instead of women, most of the famous inventors that we know of are men. Again, access to education was generally allowed only to men until really recent times. However, throughout history, there are many women that have impacted history through their academics, through things like that. We'll certainly have videos on them as well. Now, let's go ahead and let's look at the comic together. Here we see the names of the mothers. We have Nancy Edison, Susan Wright, and Jean Pasteur. Pasteur. It's French, and the pronunciation might be a little different in French, but we would probably say Pasteur in English. Now, Nancy Edison is talking to her son. Her son, of course, would be Thomas Edison. She says, "You'll ruin your eyes reading in that light, Thomas." As you can see here, Thomas is reading a book, and because we're going to imagine it's probably nighttime, or wherever Thomas is, there isn't a lot of natural light. And so, to be able to read, to be able to see the words on the page, Thomas has lit a candle, and he's reading by candlelight, which I don't know if any of you have ever tried to read just using a candle. When the power went out in Spain, I tried it. It's very difficult and it's quite tiring. Your eyes after 10, 20 minutes, they start to hurt a little bit. It's quite difficult, especially like Thomas if you only have one candle lit. Now, why is this so funny? Why is this humorous? Because it's true, you would hurt your eyes. Well, there's a few things. First off, today, in today's world, I remember me growing up sitting too close to the television. And my mom would always say to back up because I'm going to damage my eyes. I'm going to hurt my eyes. I'm going to ruin my eyesight by sitting too close to the TV. Just as we see here Nancy Edison telling her son Thomas. Okay, but Thomas is very famous. Thomas Edison is a very, very famous person. Why is that? Well, of course, Thomas made it easy for all of us to read at night by inventing the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented many, many things. He had over 1,000 patents of different inventions. Over 1,000. And Thomas Edison really didn't have a lot of formal school education. Thomas Edison did most of this through experiments by trying things out. thanks to Thomas Edison, across the world, we have access to electricity. And when we want to read at night, we just turn on the light, and we can read comfortably at night without hurting our eyes. Thomas Edison is also very famous for bringing music into the household. He is the inventor of the phonograph. And now we listen to music in the house, all because it started with Thomas Edison. Also, what else do we do at night? Well, sometimes if we're tired, we like to sit back and watch TV or watch a movie. You can also thank Thomas Edison for that. Thomas Edison was the person who was the inventor of the camera, motion camera, which is how we can watch videos that are moving. So thanks to Thomas Edison, you are watching this video right now with electricity and with the technology that we use to record videos. Of course, there were many inventors after him that really also made this possible. But Thomas Edison was extremely, extremely important and invented many, many, many things. So, Nancy, really, thanks to her scolding, telling Thomas, don't do that, maybe she's the reason why we can read at night. Now, Susan Wright. These boys right here in this photo, one with a nice gray hat, the other without a hat, both of them wearing, as you can tell, kind of old school clothing, right? In the past. You can tell this takes place in the past. Says to her two sons, Wilbur and Oliver, right? She says, Wilbur, you and Oliver need to straighten up and fly right. What does this mean? Now, maybe Wilbur and Orville were doing something they shouldn't be doing. Maybe they were getting into trouble, or they were goofing off, making jokes when they should have been doing something else. Or maybe they were playing in the neighborhood and broke a window by throwing a rock. They did something that they shouldn't do. And so the mom tells them to straighten up. That means to start acting correctly, right? You need to straighten up. You need to act correct. And you need to fly right. We use this as well to say you need to do the right thing. You need to do what you're supposed to do. You need to fly right. You need to straighten up. You need to act like mature boys and do the right thing and not get into trouble. Now, who are Wilbur and Orville Wright? They're very famous, and they are perhaps one of the most famous, or two of the most famous inventors that have come out of the United States. They were the first people to successfully take flight. Born in Ohio, these two boys were young American boys with a dream that one day humans would be able to fly through the air just like birds do. And they successfully achieved this. However, their flight was quite short. It took only about 13 seconds for the plane to come back down to Earth. However, it was the first recorded flight in history, and thanks to them, we can travel across the world on airplanes now. We can travel anywhere, and we can travel to any country we'd like, thanks to Orville and Wilbur Wright. And let's look at the last one here. We have John Pasteur. She is talking to her son, Louis. Again, they're French. Louis and his mother are both French. And Louis, wow, look at what he's wearing. Louis, very interesting sort of top that he has on. And in his hand, you can see he has a glass of milk. Next to it is a bowl with a spoon out of it, but it looks like he's finished eating, and now his mother wants him to finish his milk. She says, finish your milk, Louis, and don't give me that dirty look. In English, if someone looks at you, gives you a look like that, where they're mad, or they don't like you, they give you a look, we call it a dirty look. And so Louis is giving his mom a dirty look. Why? Well, he's a kid. He doesn't want to finish his milk. right? He wants to go out and play with his friends. But there's a deeper meaning to this. Now, Louis Pasteur has saved millions of lives, thanks to his inventions. He was a microbiologist, and Louis was the person who first understood that germs are what make people sick. Germs, these little cells and these little microbes are the things that when they get into our body are the things that really make us ill, that are the ones that give us certain diseases, right? And also at the time, a lot of people got sick from drinking milk. Milk, when it's fresh from a cow, it's very easy to spoil. If it gets too hot, if it sits out too long, milk can spoil. And if you drink spoiled milk, it's very, very bad for you. Milk also is full of germs, is full of different bacteria and germs that can also make you sick. Even if the milk hasn't gone bad, if it has those different germs and bacteria in them, it can make you very, very ill. And especially for elderly people and young people, babies, young people, right? It can easily kill them. And it was killing people. But Louis also created something that's extremely important still today. He created what is known as pasteurization. Pasteurization we use with milk and also juices. It's when you heat up the substance, you heat up the liquid, the milk or the juice to a certain degree, to a certain temperature, and by doing so kills off the bacteria. However, it doesn't ruin the milk and it doesn't ruin the juice. It's perfectly fine. It still tastes good. It's still just as good for you. And in fact, it's even better for you because it doesn't have the same bacteria that could damage you, that could hurt you, or even kill some people. So, thanks to Louis and his studies, finding out what germs were and what the effect they had on humans, he has saved millions and millions of lives. Nowadays, there's sadly a strong movement of people that are arguing for you to drink raw milk again. Please don't drink raw milk. Louis, thanks to his hard work, has saved us from having to drink raw milk and taking the risk of getting ill, of falling ill or getting sick and possibly dying. So, please don't drink raw milk. Now, all of these comics have a common theme, right? They have a common theme throughout all three of the panels. All of the moms are scolding their child, but they're scolding their child that in the future they are going to invent something to fix that problem, right? Well, maybe not Wilbur and Orville. That is more of a it's more creative, right? It's joking more so because they're not maybe they were gonna be naughty kids, they were gonna not study, but then the mom telling them to was what eventually led them to have the knowledge and skills to build and fly the first plane. It could be, right? But again, a lot of the times in society, we attribute all of the accomplishments to the men. We talk about Thomas Edison in school. We talk about Wilbur and Orville Wright in school, as well as Louis Pasteur. But we don't talk about their moms. And without their moms, who knows if we would have ever had these inventions? Put it in the comments below. Out of these four people, out of these four, which of these people did you know already? Put it in the comments and tell me what you knew about them. And do you think moms are important? Okay, everyone. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Check out more of the comics by John. They're excellent. They're very funny. And if you find some of them that are difficult, that you don't understand, go ahead and email them to me, and I'll make sure to make a video explaining it. Regardless, I'm going to keep making videos because these comics are excellent and I think they're very fun. Okay, have a good day, good week, good weekend whenever you're watching this video, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye.